Hey guys, this is Independent Lesson 2.1. We are looking at something called Mosaic plots today. Just a little introduction into what we're going to be doing, which is comparing two different variables to each other. Most of them are going to be quantitative, but in this case, we're looking at categorical variables. And in this case, those categorical variables are mascot versus teachers and students. So we're looking at something that's a little bit more relevant to the area around us, which is Sonoma State's mascot. And originally they had picked the Cossacks, and then later on they thought about changing the mascot. So they had these three different options, and they sent the survey out. And we are given that data, and we're told to create two different bar graphs to display the results. My suggestion is to use three different colors because we're going to end up sort of combining them on that far right graph, just like number 2 says. So just for the teachers, looking at the condors, 80% of the teachers said they wanted to have the condors, 10% said they wanted the sea wolves, and we also had 10% say they wanted the Cossacks. Do something similar for the students. We have 30% this time of the students who wanted the condors. Now 60% wanted the sea wolves, and for the Cossacks, only 10%. So this is just number 1, creating those two different bar graphs. What we're going to do for number 2 is we're going to complete that graph by taking each bar from the teacher sample and then stacking them. So that way we have one bar that'll get us to 100%. So we can start with our 80 from the condors. We know we're going to have 10 for the sea wolves, and we should have another 10 for the Cossacks. So we're literally just taking each little bar that we drew off to the right, or excuse me, the left, and then stacking them. Do the same thing for our students. So for our students, we had 30%, so we're going to draw that bar. And then we had 60%, so that will bring us up to 90%. And our final 10 to finish us out. So what we have done is created a stacked segmented bar graph. We are not quite there yet. So your job is to sort of look at this and determine, according to this display, what mascot do we think had the most support? So what we can do is take a look at these bars here and, sort of ask ourselves, well, which one actually looks like it has the most support? So just looking at it, we know that the green has the most support, right? Most of the teachers wanted it, and if we combine that with the percentage of students who wanted it, that should mean that the condors has the biggest support. But not as all as it seems. So upon hearing those results, the students in the council, or the students that weren't in the council, argued that the decision was incorrect because 100 teachers have been surveyed and 500 students have been surveyed. So actually there were more students involved than previously thought otherwise. So, knowing that information, we're going to fill in the chart. So remember, for teachers, we had 80% for the condors and 30% and 10 and 10, 60 and 10. This is just the information from up above, so we don't really have to worry about it. And remember we do know their totals as well, that this should be 100 and this should be 500. So working backwards a little bit, if 80% of the teachers wanted condors and we have 100, well, 80% of 100 is just 80, right? And since we have an equal number in the other categories, that just leaves 10 and 10. And you're going to do the same process with the students. 30% of 500 is 150. 60% of 500 is 300. And 10% of 500 is 50. So just using some basic division to get us those numbers. And looking again at this data and our sample sizes, well, we know that there were 5 times the amount of students than there were teachers. So what we need to do is adjust our graph to represent that. So let's say one of these bars on the right graph is 100. So what we're going to do is sort of extend this out like 4 more times almost to represent that 500. Because we're thinking, one bar is like 100, and doing 5 times that is like 500. Now the shading you don't really need to do, but it's just to make it look a little bit nicer. So this final graph here, this is our mosaic plot. It takes into account the sample size of each group that was sampled into consideration. So unlike the bar graphs on the left here, this takes these sample sizes of 100 and 500 into order. So knowing what we know based on this graph, well, there's a bigger now blue square than there is for the teachers. Looking at this area right here. That blue area is larger. So that's going to tell us for our final question here, well, what should they make the SSU mascot? Remember that blue square was what I color coded. It's probably different for you. That blue square will be the Seawolves, which is what they actually did make their mascot. So I know this was a very short lesson, but it's more of an introduction into the unit. Please let me know if you guys have any questions on this. Be happy to help. Thank you guys.